I recently made a video about a feature request I wanted to see in Rough Animator. And you guys had your own feature requests that you left for me in the comments. And I wanted to go over some of those today and give my feedback on those ideas. On today's episode of the Expat Animator. Hey, it's Patrick. Welcome to my Expat Animator series, where I try and help you with your animations. So here's one from Best Dolorito that said that they want to see some masking. As far as I know, there's no way to do masking in Rough Animator. But if I want to mask something out, usually I'll just duplicate the layer I'm working on, and then I'll erase that portion that I don't want to be seen. And then if I decide that I want to undo that, like with a mask, you could just turn the mask off. But I would just go back and revert to the layer that I saved that I didn't erase with. But it's a good idea, and thanks for sending that comment. Here's one from 2D Show. I like how you spelled 2D there. I wish I could edit the shape into perspective or maybe a mesh feature. Yeah, I could definitely see where a mesh or especially the perspective tool could be handy. I use that in Photoshop, especially if I'm working on backgrounds. But I think to add that to Rough Animator would probably be quite a lot of work for the developer. So I don't know if I would expect to see that anytime soon. And like I say, in the meantime, if you've got Photoshop or something similar that has the perspective or mesh tools, you can just use that and then bring that image into Rough Animator as a workaround. Here's one I like from Blue Paw that they said they'd like dark mode. And I could see a use for dark mode for sure. I go back and forth on dark mode on my operating system, where sometimes I really like it and I'll use it for everything, and then sometimes I kind of get bored of it and want to just use the light version. So it would be nice to have it as an option in Rough Animator. I don't know if that's like a necessary feature, but it would be nice to have. And I'm not a developer, but if it would be easy enough to just have that as a toggle option, so that if the operating system defaults to dark mode, then your apps can just switch into dark mode. I know that that's possible on other apps that I have, but I don't know how easy it is to implement that. But it would be kind of cool to have dark mode in Rough Animator someday. And here's one from Gabriel Tunes. He said he'd love to see a bone feature. I think adding a bone feature to Rough Animator would be cool, but it would definitely be a lot of work, I'm sure. And I've used other animation software with bone features before, and I kind of find that I kind of get too reliant on the bone feature, where what I really want to do is I want to draw my animation, frame by frame. And that's what Rough Animator allows me to do. But once you rigged your character and you have the bones, that makes it kind of easy to do animations with it. It's kind of addicting to just use it because it's faster, than having to hand draw everything. But I think that you get more personality in your animations if you're doing the old-fashioned hand-drawing, traditional way of animating. And that's what Rough Animator gives me right now. And I know Gabriel Tunes likes Rough Animator. He's just suggesting this as something cool that would be a nice feature to have within Rough Animator. I just don't know that it would be that easy to implement. And I know that there's other software packages out there that do it, that do bone rigging very well. And for the developer to add that to Rough Animator, it almost kind of goes against what Rough Animator's been doing. So I don't know if we're going to see that from anytime soon. But if Rough Animator ever added a bone feature, I think it would be great to have. But I don't know if I would personally use it. But let me know what you guys think. Would bones be a good feature to add to Rough Animator? Let me know down in the comments. And here's one from Abdu Animation saying that they would like a text tool. And yes, a text tool would be nice to have in Rough Animator. And there's definitely times when I use text within Rough Animator. Especially I like to do that little rotoscoping trick over text so that it makes the text kind of wiggle. And the way I've been doing that is I'll just lay my text out in a different app, something like Affinity Photo or Photoshop or something like that, and then I'll export that out as a PNG file usually, so I have the transparency, or JPEG, and I'll bring it in and trace it in Rough Animator and then animate it from there. But I wouldn't have to do that step if Rough Animator had a text tool, so that would save me a little bit of time when I want to animate my text like that. If I could just grab the text tool, type out what I want, and then I could rotoscope my text from there. So overall, really good suggestions. Thanks everybody for sending them into the comments, and apologies for anybody that I missed. But maybe the developer will see this video one day and get some ideas for new features to add to Rough Animator. But personally, I don't really mind if they never add another feature again, because Rough Animator does what I need it to do right now. And, I see that happen with different software that I like. As the years go by, they keep adding features and adding features. And I don't like the software as much because it gets too bloated and with too many features. I mean, Photoshop's a perfect example of that, where, Photoshop can do so many things, including animation, but Photoshop's not really the best program to do animation in my opinion. You can do your animation in Photoshop, but there's better options out there that are more geared towards animation, where Photoshop is really geared for photos. Now, I hope Rough Animator doesn't go down that road too far, where they just keep adding new features and new features, because it's going to add a lot of new tools to the interface. And one of the reasons that I really like Rough Animator is the interface is still simplified enough that you can take someone who's never used the program before and you can kind of teach them how to use it within like a half an hour, and be off and running on and making their own animations. And you can't really say that about a lot of other animation software out there. They're too powerful, or they're made to work with teams, or just too many features that you may never use for what you want to do with your animations. And if Rough Animator would get too bloated, I don't know if I would like it so much anymore. And part of the reason for that is I work in a lot of different apps during the day for my day job. I'm in Photoshop and InDesign and Illustrator, Affinity Photo, Final Cut Pro. I mean, a lot of different programs, and it's a lot of interfaces to use when you're bouncing back and forth between programs. And it's nice that I can just hop into Rough Animator and I don't really have to think. It's so simple to use that I can just start drawing and animating right away. And I don't have to think, oh, what did that button do? Or how did I do this? Rough Animator to me is like riding a bike. Like, you learn it and you don't forget it. And it doesn't matter if you're off in another app, for a long time. You come back to Rough Animator and just pick up where you left off. And that's really nice for me as like a part-time animator when I'm not doing animation as my full-time job. And I'm using a lot of different apps, that it's nice to have an app that doesn't have a lot of bloat and a lot of tools to kind of get in the way, where I just want to start drawing and animating. And Rough Animator is really good at that right now. So I worry a little bit about recommending that Rough Animator adds, all of these features we talked about today. And, there's endless things you can add to a piece of software. So my recommendation to the developer would be to try and keep Rough Animator simple, because it is simple right now. I mean, it's powerful, but it's a simple interface, and it's good for people that want to learn animation and get into animation for the first time. You show somebody who's never animated before a really convoluted piece of software. I'm not going to name any names, but you know which ones I'm talking about. They're going to be scared off. Whereas you can teach somebody Rough Animator in a short amount of time, and then they can just go. So that's my 2 cents on Rough Animator and adding features. If you have some more features you'd like to see, go ahead and leave them in the comments and let me know what you think. Should Rough Animator be adding more features, or do you like it how it is right now? I mean, there's always room for improvement, but something like stability to me is a feature where you can take an app and make it even more stable than the last version. And to me, that's a reason to upgrade for sure. So it'll be interesting to see where Rough Animator goes. We're still in version 2. At the time of today's recording, we're in March of 2022. We're at version 2.13. So Rough Animator is still a relatively new software. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. But I hope that it doesn't go too far, if you know what I mean. This has been another episode of the Expat Animator. Thanks for joining me today, and keep on animating. If you found today's video helpful, you might like some of my animation classes over at Skillshare.com. I'll put the link in the description below.